Sports on your dial right now. With SEC stories every play, every time we're Rob Brown breaking it all down. Yeah. SEC Sidelines Sports on my mind. Rob Brown calling game time, highlight shine, executive mind. Brenden Martin keeping Rob in line. Like, subscribe, share it, tell everyone. Sideline Sports, y'all come back real soon. Same place, same time, same tune.
What? I tell you what, I love it. Rob Brown in Memphis. I love this band.
Yeah, I love them.
Yeah, I do.
They were at I heard they opened for Kid Rock. Oh,
yeah, they did.
Oh, too soon. Too soon.
Hey, man, that Super Bowl last night was fun. Got a local MVP.
Boring.
Local MVP, though, from Shelby County, from Memphis, from Arlington, Tennessee, right here in Shelby County. Kenneth Walker III, who played his ball right here and went to Wake Forest, finished at Michigan State. Thank you, transfer portal. But anyway, look, got a great one today. Cheryl Chambers watches this show every day. I love her. She is one of the best ad salesmen out there for radio in Memphis and in America. She's right. We did get it right. Thank you, Dave Bartu. Let me say this. Take a picture with your cell phone of the QR code. We do this on 8 channels. Brendan's got us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, 8 channels, live streaming. Share it, like us, and subscribe. Please do
Comment. Just join the program, people.
Yeah. And we love your comments. And I'm going to tell you, you want to have the comment thing over on the side just going like a ticker on the stock exchange. It's a lot of fun. But I'm going to tell you what, guys, watch that Super Bowl last night. I don't know if I want to call it boring or whatever it was, but Dave Bartu had told us, he told me this before the game, coaches. He said, top 5 scoring efficiency, offense and defense, Seattle. He goes, I could see a case where New England doesn't even score. And the over was like 41.5, over and under. And most people thought, oh, wow, I'm going to hit the under. And then right there in the last fourth quarter, my son and I are going back and forth, and he's a numbers finance guy. And I said, that's why it's a 60-minute game. And, it got to, 44 points. But Kenneth Walker III, Pete, I was telling Ellis, right here in Arlington, Tennessee, right here in Shelby County, proud of that young man. He almost had to give up football due to an injury. So got to say this much. It is really, really, to me, exciting when you get to see a local kid do. He didn't get a touchdown, but he had 161 yards in that game. I got to say this, both of y'all, Ellis, I'll start with you. You watched the game. Mike McDonald, he's got a Georgia background. He's one of the 3rd youngest coach ever to win a Super Bowl, maybe. What was it about Seattle other than the fact they just played great defense? Offense wasn't anything special at all.
Yeah, I don't know. But I think the McDonald's story, especially for a coach, from a coach's viewpoint, that might be the most unusual story of the whole game. His background, just phenomenal, the way he broke into coaching and what he did and was willing to do to move up the ranks and so forth. But, football coaches, Pete might disagree, we can watch games like that and like some parts of it because there's some good football in some of these games that don't look very entertaining. There's some good football going on. It's just not that great for the fans. But, I mean, coming into the game, I thought it was probably going to end up doing something like it did. New England has sort of snuck by with a very, very poor to average offensive line all year.
Yeah.
May, I feel bad for May. Didn't even have a chance.
Yeah.
They'll talk about how bad he was, but Darnold would have been worse if he'd been on the other team. So anyhow, it was okay. I didn't watch it. My son was over here watching it with me, and he's 21 years old. He wants me to cut the volume up, and I want to mute the volume. And then we're going back and forth. I tried to find somebody on the damn radio calling the game so I wouldn't have to listen to Collingsworth. And there's nobody on the radio unless you got a Sirius or something with. So I don't on my home radio.
Yeah.
Then we had to time up getting off before halftime so I didn't have to watch bad booty.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just NFL. NFL really, man. They need to go ahead and just admit they need to get a license for prostitution.
Yeah. Don't serve tofu at a steakhouse, man.
Oh God.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, watching the game, and then I'm getting some text with Ellis. When you get Ellis, Pete, and Bartu, it's like some guy's been in a car wreck and he's in there. There's a neurosurgeon working on him. There's an ortho and there's a heart surgeon working. Man, the information, we're going to have to find a way on game days maybe to have a live feed with these coaches. And Bartu had said, Pete, he saw a scenario where he didn't think New England would score. The defense for Seattle is exceptional. And I was really proud of Derek Hall, an SEC guy from Gulfport, played it all, got a sack, forced a fumble. Of course, you had Carlton Davis III from Tampa, who played at Auburn. You had a lot of SEC guys, and kind of a theme today is, coaches, the SEC had a lot of players in that Super Bowl. But how far will that carry you? Talent alone can't. You got to have coaching. And I'm not saying this to say it, but damn, we miss coaches like y'all because you did not miss details. I just didn't see anything. New England and Vrabel got them to the Super Bowl, which is a huge accomplishment. They couldn't do anything against that suffocating Seahawks defense.
No, Rob, you're exactly right. And I agree with Ellis. There's certain things in the game that I looked for, and it was like, wow, this is pretty good. Especially when Riley Mills, the rookie nose or three technique from Notre Dame, walks the left guard back into May's face there. I mean, that he reaches out, locks out with that right arm, drives with the left hand, and then just that was power to speed. And what he did was when he stepped, second step's the contact point, and Ellis has coached it a million times, but when he locked that right hand out under the left shoulder of that left guard, and then he brought that left hand. But what bothers me, and it's bothered me for the last few years, whether it's NFL or college, the pad level of the offensive lineman is just so damn high that guys in a 3-point stance and they bend their knees, get their hips down, and they create power producing angles. And all they do, their first step's so quick, and then they lock out and accelerate their feet on contact. I mean, Mills driving the guard back into May's face. The left tackle, I know he's a rookie, the kid from LSU from New England, he didn't have a chance. I mean, he's swinging a ghost right there, and they're coming off the edge. And, it was all night long they couldn't fix it. The Patriots couldn't fix it. And then both tackles gave up 2 sacks each, the Moore kid on the right side. So I'm like Ellis. Credit Mike Vrabel. They did this with a patchwork offensive line at this team to the Super Bowl, and that's even a bigger credit to Drake May. But New England played the easiest schedule. We talk about strength of schedule in college all the time. New England played the easiest strength of schedule in the NFL, but they got there. But then Seattle just took it to another level. How about Sam Darnold, man? He led the league during the regular season in turnovers, none in the playoffs. What a huge step up. But now I want to talk about Kenneth Walker. Nickname is K9. And when K9 was coming out of Arlington High School, he had one scholarship offer. That was to Kent State University. Wake Forest loses a running back. They jump in on Kenneth late. So he had originally committed to Kent, but he ends up at Wake. And one of the things that Wake was running at that time, and LSU, you know how they rode that reach and ride, read zone stuff, where the quarterback's riding the running back across the formation 2 to 3 steps. Walker told a bunch of people he learned how to slow down his original movement. And the one thing that I always talk about with running backs is I use CBA. Control, you're under control to read the blocks. Then once you read it, it's a burst to get to the second level, then accelerate away. there were so many times last night that Walker was under control, kind of danced, waited for a seam. Then that burst through the line of scrimmage. He sees it, plants that foot, and boom, he's into the secondary. And it's a shame that touchdown got called back, or ever he would have been over 200 yards. But yeah, that was a good call. But Kenneth Walker is a kid that from the time he was at Arlington High School, his work ethic has carried him a lot of places, but he's special now with his agility, his reading. But CBA, it's not the collective bargaining agreement, but it's control, burst, acceleration. Walker has it all. The guy you got to give credit to is John Schneider, the general manager of the Seahawks. The first time the Seahawks won the Super Bowl under Pete Carroll and the Legion of Doom, they were the number one scoring defense in the NFL back then. They're the number one scoring defense in the NFL last night as well. And they turned it up to 11 now. But I like, I love coaching offense, but I love to see great defense. And Riley Mills as a rookie, the kid Amaniori from South Carolina, a rookie. Seattle's doing it with some young guys as well. And for Mike McDonald and that coaching staff to blend it all, that was impressive.
Yeah, and let me add Ellis Johnson, Pete Cordelli, executive producer Brenden Martin on this Monday morning, February the 9th of 2026. Man, it's flying by the month of February. Watching the game last night, Coach Johnson, Sam Darnold, 5 teams in 8 seasons. That guy he had a lot of reasons he could have quit. I love people who are mentally tough. Whiners, bitchers, moaners, I can't stand them. I mean, if you go duck hunting with me, I'm going to constantly be saying any minute, they can come in. And when the sun gets on those decoys, it's going to be a magic show. It's a waste of time to be gloom and doom. But Pete's right. The defense for Seattle, how do you get guys to buy in on that? As a defensive coordinator, did they have a lot of superstars on that team, in your opinion?
Not really. And I have not kept up with pro football as much as I did back when we had some players involved in it.
Yeah.
And I had some friends coaching. I think this was the first time I had a Super Bowl. I knew 2 or 3 of them were, like Ernest Jones. He came into South Carolina just when I was stopping my little analyst thing with Muschamp. I knew who some of these kids are, but I don't know anybody on either team, player or coach. And that's about the first time it's ever happened. So I don't follow pro ball unless I'm watching somebody who I know very well, involved in the coaching staff or they're playing on the team. But now this team, in my opinion, it's just as fast probably, but it's not as dominant as the Legion of Doom, Legion of Boom, whatever. But that was that defense was dominant. I mean, they were more physical up front, I think. But I do think this group has a lot of speed and they make a lot of dynamic plays. And you could just feel it coming in that game last night. I don't know how it didn't come 20, 30 minutes earlier, but when that first interception hit, it was kind of like somebody cut the water on. And the way they run to the ball, the physicality when they tackle, their pass rush, constant. The Patriots tried chipping edges. The pressure wasn't coming from the edge all the time. Pete's already talked about it. The guard, nose tackle, put the guard in the guy's feet one time. You can chip everybody, but if you get a nose tackle sticks a guard in the quarterback's feet, the chipping ain't gonna help.
Yeah,
it just takes longer to find somebody to throw it to. But they tried everything they could do schematically, but it just couldn't block them. It's just a difference in the talent and the speed and the physicality of the game.
Coach,
Rob, the other thing I'd like to add on to what Ellis just said, for as good as New England and Vrabel is on defense, the first half they never set an edge. And Kenneth Walker was so good as he'd run inside zone and nothing was there. Boom, and he bounces it outside. And Vrabel even said at the half, we haven't set an edge. And I'm going, how can not adjust that especially with the iPads on the line, somebody somewhere there's a miscommunication. And my gosh, Walker was good enough to find the ability to get on the outside. And after the game, they were interviewing Walker, and they said, with all the stats that are done and everything, you gain more yards outside the tackle than any other running back in the Super Bowl, in Super Bowl history. And it's like, yes, because the defense wasn't setting an edge. They weren't turning the ball back inside to their help. And I was a little surprised it took, and really in the second half, the same thing happened. And surprised that as good as Vrabel and that defensive staff is, they didn't somehow make an adjustment.
Yeah. Quick question. These are great takes. Ellis Johnson, people are saying Will Muschamp now is going to be the defensive coordinator at Texas. He hadn't called plays as a defensive coordinator in a few years. You did it coaching 43 years. Pete, like 31 in college. Ellis, is it going to be that hard, you think? Because an example I'm going to throw at you, Brian Van Gorder was one of the hottest defensive coordinators in college football in 2004 at Georgia. He leaves and goes to the NFL for a while and comes back in 2012 on Gene Chizik's staff, 2 years removed from a national championship. And either he wasn't paying attention to all the hurry up, no huddle that Gus brought in 06 and whatever like that, but combined with Scott Loeffler, who had been offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions when they went 0-16, that Auburn team in 2012 was the worst Auburn team in 62 years since 1950 when they lost to Wofford and went 0-10. Earl Brown was the coach. A nice man, but couldn't coach. But how hard is it if you've been off a few years?
By a year.
Yeah. All right. But my dad was at Auburn. He said he was a fine man, a Notre Dame man, but he couldn't coach a lick. So, but anyway, Ellis, tell me about that though. How hard is it? Brian Van Gorder, I mean, he was just called everything but his own name by the fans. If you were out for a few years and you're not paying attention, I would think it'd be like not doing anything because repetition is the mother of all skill.
It's funny you asked me that question. I remember first day I got to Auburn, and I went down and put stuff in my office, and Brian's sitting in there.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course, we were pretty good friends. I didn't know him extremely well. But we sat there and talked a little while. He's packing to go out, and I'm coming in. But those are hard times in coaching. But I found that when we took over that crew and started putting things in, et cetera, they'd been real complicated. I mean, it's at least the linebackers, because the kids would ask me questions, and I'd feel like, don't worry about that. I just think they were doing a little bit too much and trying to be too complicated. I think Nick even had to learn the more problems they had with the fast-paced offenses. And of course, they had some like Lane was coaching against them at that time a little bit. I can't. Hugh Freeze wasn't there yet. I can't remember, but it was somebody on the tip of my tongue, and I can't remember who it was. Used to give him fits defensively. Nick would not let go of all that NFL terminology and all the flipping, flopping, and defensive fronts and all this kind of stuff. And even when you got 3 and 4 wides out there, still wanted to go back to all the nickel pass matchups and everything. And that becomes a little bit less important when somebody's running that fast pace on you. You got to be lined up, ready to go. If you don't have the best matchup on the field, that's fine. But if you ain't even lined up because you're trying to find the best matchup on the field, you're getting ready to have a disaster.
Yeah.
And even one of, I think, the best head coach and probably the best defensive coach has coached in college football the last 30 years. He was having problems with it and had to cut back. And I think that's, so I'm not worried about Will. Will was also, he ran our defense at South Carolina.
Yeah.
Ty had the title, but he wasn't calling it. I mean, he was calling it, but he was being told what to call. So his hands haven't been off of it too long, and I think he'll be fine. Yeah.
The reason I asked you about Brian Van Gorder, he was so good, and then you go to the NFL and you come back, and the college game had just changed. I think given more time, I mean, you don't go from being one of the top 5 in the country to that. It's just, that was a question I had out of curiosity. Pete, same thing with offense. Both of y'all have such a grasp of what goes on offense, defense, but you understand the whole game. When the average person is watching a game, it's going real fast. And you're talking about setting the edge and pad level and all like that. Is that what's being taught in pajama football 7-on-7 camps? Is that why they are the way they are? Because few teams can really line up. Like Alabama has always been thought of as they'll line up and run the ball down your throat. This year they had one game when they had Jam Miller go over 100 yards rushing. That was the only game they had a 100-yard rusher all season. You predicted a few weeks ago on this show, Alabama doesn't make the playoffs this year. And then Dave said he doesn't think Oregon will. I mean, as much as we're trying to say the ACC is done as a conference, hell, we got Tom Luganbill coming on the show Friday as a guest. I'm looking forward to having him on. Always like a guy that wears cowboy boots with his sport coat on the sidelines. He is Georgia Tech quarterback. But Pete, talk about that. I think now it's just wide open as I've ever seen it. And by the way, the North Dakota State Bison are going D1 in football.
I'm sorry,
Eggman loves it.
I'm sorry, I had to wave to Sergeant Dan at the Brentwood Police Station. He went by. He allowed me my parking spot today. It's not the Sergeant Dan from Forrest Gump. I promise you. It's a
Lieutenant
real
Dan.
Sergeant. Lieutenant Dan. Well, this is Sergeant Dan. Okay, I got that right. But yeah, I should have saluted. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Rob, here's the one thing that going back to what Ellis said. Those guys coming from the NFL, man, they have so much time and there'd be different things. The one thing that Coach Holtz always did is after the first 3 weeks, we would go back and do a self-scout. And he wanted to know by formation, by play, every play, run play, protection, pass play, where we were as to what we were calling and what was effective, what was average, and what was hurting us. And he'd always say, we're doing too much. We're doing too much. Everybody gets excited in August and coming out of camp and you're trying this and you're trying that. And, man, you're going to go in and, those first 3 games, hell, we always played Michigan State, Purdue. It was like our Big Ten run. And after the Purdue game, we would always – now, our GAs and our film guys, after every game, they were making cut-up reels so that when we came in on that 4th Monday, sat down and bang, we were banging it out. What were we running well? Was it because of who we were doing it with? Did we need to make a personnel change if we weren't doing it well? And then we cut down, and we had 5 runs in our offense. But every week, 3 were going to be primary, 2 were going to be secondary, and it was based on that self-scout we did after the 3rd week.
Yeah.
The other thing that helped a bunch in July, before we started our camp, if Ellis Johnson is our defensive coordinator and linebacker coach, he watched the Michigan linebackers and the Michigan defensive scheme, and he compared it to what we were doing with our Notre Dame guys. And he'd say, Michigan's inside linebacker, they're Mike. He's a bear, man. He's a dude. They're Will, not so much. So we were comparing our talent to our first 3 opponents.
Yeah.
And it gave us the matchups we wanted going into the first 3 games. And so our offensive coach, Tony Yelovich, had to tell, Coach Holtz, here's how their offense, and we presented our offensive observation of Michigan to our defensive staff. The defensive staff presented the defensive breakdown, and I'm going to tell you, that helped a lot in our game planning, especially early year. And this is before transfer portal stuff, but they had certain players coming back off injury. A couple guys didn't play at the end of the season, and so we had to match up especially in that first game. Second game was so there was a lot of information being communicated between the offensive and defensive staffs in preparing our game plan. But after that third week, we were all, because after games you got a pretty good idea of where you were the rest of the year, because they're doing it with new players with their current roster. And I to me with Portal, I think teams should be.
Yeah, well, Pete will be back with us. Ellis, this is the interesting thing about it. He's talking about self-scouting. And another thing, you mentioned as you were coming in, Brian Van Gorder was leaving. There are, coaching requires, I mean, it way better than I do, but anything that I love, I put everything into it. My dad worked every day of the week. I mean, at 5:30 in the morning on a Saturday, he's up in the office till about noon. I don't work on weekends. Every client I've ever had has my cell phone. If they want to call me at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the duck blind on a Saturday morning and they need me, you know what I always tell them? I'm damn sure glad you called, because I don't want you calling anybody else. I'm never bothered by the opportunity to make money, be successful. So, hey, look who it is, the quiet, diminutive genius here, the mad scientist, Dave Bartu.
Speaking of making money, he made a lot of people money yesterday. Way to go, Mr. Dave.
Yeah, Coach Dave. Look, Dave has made me realize when you're talking to Ellis and Pete, and then you throw in Dave Bartu about strength, scoring efficiency, offense and defense. Top 5, Seattle offense, defense, New England 12th and 15th respectively. And there's a saying in the stock market: everybody can't be right at the same time, but they can be right all together some of the time. That was such a setup, and you didn't see a scenario. You said, I could see where Seattle keeps New England off the scoreboard. As the game went on, eventually, they got some points. They got 15 points. But good morning. Welcome aboard. Your takeaways from that and all the coaching that's going on.
Well, the takeaway from it was obviously no shock, right? When it comes down to the outcome of the game, we were hoping for better. I think we were all hoping for better, but that's football. There's a lot of blowouts in football, college, and to a much lesser extent the NFL. But New England, it was a great run. But by the numbers, this wasn't a team that, this wasn't a team that was supposed to be winning that football game, and we saw that. But I think for me, from the coaching standpoint, and sorry I was late this morning, literally on the phone staffing with the new NFL head coach, trying not to make this mistake of hiring a Rasheem Morris at San Francisco. No, I know everybody. Little side note: Raheem Morris. Okay, media has hyped that guy up. He has been a defensive coach for 7 years. 7 years, 7 consecutive years. The defensive scoring efficiency that he had dropped the next year. He has never improved a scoring efficiency defense in the NFL once in his career. Okay. So, but for me personally, the biggest thing that stands out with Seattle is the coaching, right? I mean, that's my job, but heading into this season, Mike McDonald, 3 years as a defensive coordinator, guys with 3 or more years as a defensive coordinator in the NFL. He was our number 1 ranked defensive coordinator this century. Number one ranked defensive coordinator this century so far, before this year. Okay. That doesn't even include his play calling defensively this year for Seattle. So he is a bloody genius. And then Clint Kubiak, a lot of people don't realize this. He called plays 2021, I believe, for the Minnesota Vikings. This guy was a rising star. We didn't know what his floor was. His ceiling was elite. So you happen to get And nobody really talked about this because the guys were young and they hadn't established themselves. But by the numbers, you had an elite ceiling defensive coordinator and an elite ceiling offensive coordinator. Credit John Schneider, obviously, for getting all the players together to make those guys click. But Seattle came into the season offense and defensive coordinator. It was one of the top 2 pairings in all of NFL. Right. And it goes back to what I talk about with college football all the time, too, is yes, talent is very important. But you know who has the best 3 sets of coordinators, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, special teams in college football right now? Indiana Hoosiers.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, it's to me, if I'm a fan, NFL or college football, always be looking at your coaches. If they don't have experience, don't judge them because you don't really have anything to judge them by. But if they do, ask, where's the ceiling? Where's the floor? Those are the 2 most important things that we look at when we're staffing up for any level of football.
Yeah. You know, and Ellis, you heard what he just said, and Pete as well. San Francisco makes a hire, Ellis Johnson. Let's say you're the GM or you're the owner. Would you have thought to have called Dave Bartu in advance? Anybody? I mean,
No.
Yeah, I would.
I would now.
Yeah.
I didn't know
it's not how the NFL works. It's not how the NFL works. Sorry, and I don't want to jump in front of Ellis, but man, let me tell you, I got to tell this for listeners. The NFL is a tight-knit group. And what I mean by that is they don't listen to guys like me that are on the outside. You know,
Right.
No matter how good, no matter how smart, no matter what it is I produce, okay? NFL doesn't want to listen unless it comes from their own internally or somebody they know directly. They would rather listen to Ellis talk about what I say if they know him better than what I say myself. So, you know, my way into the NFL was through college football coaches. And this morning I was talking to a former college football coach. That's my only way in. The nepotism, I thought it was going to be less in the NFL. It is brutal to deal with in the NFL.
It's what I said the other day when I was trying to be funny. I mean, it's all this wife swapping going on, and they recirculate coaches. I mean, you just mentioned one a while ago. I'm not going to pile on, Dave, but you mentioned one a while ago, and that dude got a head coaching job too. Somewhere along the way.
2 of them.
Anyhow,
Twice he's been a head coach. Twice
Pete, I got to jump on when you were talking about grading the other team's players with your coaching staff. One of my first time ever coaching as a student coach here at Citadel, and I can remember vividly sitting in a room each Sunday night, and Coach Ross would come in, and he'd sit with the defensive staff, and that room was Bobby Ross, Charlie Rizzo, Frankie Beamer, and Ralph Regan. And he would spend 10 minutes or 15 minutes in there, and they'd put on a game film of the opponent we're getting ready to play. And each of those coaches had to grade the players on the opposing team in their position that they coach. And they'd give that to the offensive staff. Of course, Coach Ross being in there, the staffs exchanged it. They put some value on it because they didn't just do it for each other, hand it to them and say, well, I don't give a what y'all think. Coach Ross came in with it. They took it and they looked at it. But it was something just joggled my memory because it's one of the first things I remember doing as a student coach way back in 1975.
Well, we had them present it in a staff meeting, so the whole staff was in there. But you know, Coach Ross and Coach Holtz were pretty close, so I'm sure they exchanged some information. But let me tell you, it helped us in our breakdowns and developing our game plan of the matchups, especially. And it's so valuable that Barry Alvarez did it when he went to Wisconsin. You know, because trying to build that Wisconsin program, knowing how good the Big Ten was. And eventually, you know, I know a couple of guys on the staff at Notre Dame went with Barry, John Palermo and Jim Huber. And JP used to do it all the time, you know. And so it works. So that's great to hear that Coach Ross did it. But man, it is very, very informative. Hey, Dave, can I ask you about one other guy?
Yes, sir.
How did you rate Doug Marrone?
Okay, now in the NFL or in college, right?
NFL.
The NFL, Doug wasn't too bad. I was hoping for more out of Doug. I thought by the numbers, his run at Syracuse as a head coach there was really good, really underrated. And so at the NFL level, and I'm trying to remember right off the top of my head, I do remember when he got hired that, being a college football guy, anytime a guy goes from college to the NFL, I do root for him because it's hard to get in there and stick. But it's a real incredible interviewer to get in the NFL. So, Doug, I do believe he was to the NFL, but overall, I gravitate back to what he did at Syracuse, which was highly exceptional in his run there.
Yeah, let me throw something in here. Dave, you talked about the NFL will not listen to you from the outside. I always reference everybody go watch Dan Patrick's little 5-minute snippet on YouTube about why he left ESPN. He thanked them for the opportunity and all like that, but he said the longer I was there, if I wanted to talk NFL, I had to talk to one of their NFL guys. If I wanted to talk college, I had to talk to one of their college guys. He goes, I realized I was living in an echo chamber. And he goes, that's not what journalism is all about. Dave Bartu, we got two smart coaches here, best producer in the planet, a lot of smart people watching. Share it, like, subscribe, people. Dave, people, let's say you're an NFL executive watching this show. Why would they not say, hey, coach, we've got to listen to Dave Bartu. Look at his track record. I mean, Pete's coached in the NFL a couple of years with the Cowboys. The NFL is always going to be nepotism. You're right. It's the worst thing about it.
I don't know what it is. There's a few assistant GMs that I work with that listen and ask questions, but they always seem to try to defer back to their people, right? When we have a group that does that. We got folks inside that do that. Well, why if your group is spend 30 minutes and explain the numbers of why the middle 8 is a stupid hypothesis to focus on? It doesn't work in the NFL. I mean, everything I throw at these guys is I throw rudimentary stuff. And it seems to be a shock to them. Wow, I didn't know that. Wow, I didn't know that. Can I get paid mid-6 figures to do nothing with data for you guys? So I think it is. I think a lot of it comes back to the hardest thing to get in college and pro football. There's one commodity that's extraordinarily hard to earn, and that's trust.
Yep.
No matter what I say, they don't know me, right? So they can't trust me, and so these things take time. I'm an outsider in college football coaching tree or anything like that, and so mine has been developed over the years, and that's one of the things that I really discovered in terms of trying to be able to connect with a head coach. It takes a lot of conversations, it takes a lot of texting, but ultimately it comes down to one big thing. If they don't trust you, no matter how good your ideas are, they're not going to let you in. So, I understand that, even though the door is shut a lot for me, I just got to keep building trust to work my way up into different programs and different franchises. It's the way it is.
That I'm going to tell you, Pete's coached on both levels, so he might shed more light on this. But my experience all the times, if you wanted to go visit another college staff, usually it was, come on, man, we've swapped some ideas, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. If you wanted to go visit a professional football staff, as a college coach, it was always so hard to get them to agree, come in or whatever. They might send a coach down there to talk to you, but it was like, you're going into some protected area, whatever. I remember when we first went with Coach Kroom at Mississippi State, and he took us up to Green Bay, and we were treated like kings. When I was at Clemson and the Panthers started football, and they played in our stadium the first year. And so we kind of had an open door with them for a little while. Plus, the owner's son had played at Clemson. But there were few exceptions. Most of the time, you could get a visit, and then you would get there, and you'd look around. Hell, you couldn't find anybody. And it's finally somewhere around 2 p.m., they'd send the second Nickelback coach into the room to visit with y'all for about 30 minutes. But it was trust. They didn't trust anybody. I don't know whether they was scared that you were going to take ideas out of there or if you were going to share things with them. It was crazy. And another thing that changed, I guess, was free agency that just forced it. It used to be really, really hard to get pro football film. Now it's pretty easy because every game that's played in the NFL, every team gets a copy of it. And they just finally said, hell, we can't control all this digital stuff anyhow. So as soon as the game film's done, every team gets a copy of it, whether you're going to play them or not. And that was really to help them with free agency and evaluate players and that kind of thing. So now you can get your hands on it pretty easily. But for a while there, you couldn't even get the damn game films.
You know what's cool, Dave, and Ellis and Pete and everybody watching? Back when the USFL, when the Memphis Showboats were here, you had Logan Young and Billy Donovan. Remember, Pete owned that team, the majority owners. And you had Brother Oliver living in Big Logan's guest house over there in Chickasaw Gardens, evaluating talent. 5 years after the $1 settlement for the USFL, 17 of the Showboat players were still on active NFL rosters. That was a brilliant, because Logan was like, hey, I know a lot about football, I think, but Bill Oliver, brother, has forgotten more than I know. To me, Dad always taught me, know how to read the room, okay? Identify the power brokers, the smart people quickly, and then listen to them. And if you want to get people's attention, a friend of mine said, you say, listen here, MFer, and then pause. But Dave, I'm shocked that they don't listen more to you. Pete, you've been in the NFL with the Cowboys. I actually was in the food line when Bryant broke Stagg's record, 315, working in the press box in high school in Birmingham. And I looked over next to me. I go, Dad, that's Gil Brandt. I'm like, from the Cowboys. He was up there watching the game with me. And I was like, he eats too, Pete.
It goes back to what Ellis said. When I was with the Cowboys, our training camp was out in Thousand Oaks, California.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, Coach Landry and Eddie Robinson at Grambling were best friends. Wow. And the Grambling staff spent a week in Thousand Oaks. And Coach Landry and Gil said, give them anything they want. So they would come to practice, go by and watch position coaches. But then after practice, there was a room set up with all the film. This is back when we had 16 millimeter projectors. And there were every room had a projector, film, practice film, whatever you wanted. And the film guys had to make an extra copy, and that was called the visiting coaches room. So, and then as a scout, Grambling was one of my schools. So when I'd go to Ruston, I'd go to Louisiana Tech one day and then go to Grambling the next. So my first trip, we didn't have cell phones, none of that. I'm staying at the Holiday Inn in Ruston. I come back from my Louisiana Tech visit, which was pretty good. The light on my phone in the room's flashing message. I pick it up. Pete, Gil, give me a call. So I call him. He said, you're going to Grambling tomorrow, right? I said, yes, sir. And we always had to turn in a calendar with what schools we were going to, so Gil knew where we all were. So I said, yes, sir. He said, all right, here's the deal. You got to go and buy 24 donuts before you go to Grambling. I said, what? He said, you buy 2 dozen donuts, but the first dozen goes to Coach Robinson. Because that's the agreement he and Coach Landry had, is that whenever a Dallas Cowboy scout comes in, he brings me a dozen donuts, and then maybe I'll share the second dozen with the rest of the staff.
I like that. Dave,
So here's the deal, Rob.
yeah.
I had to get up at like 5:15 in the morning to find a damn donut shop in Ruston, Louisiana, because I had to be at the school at 7:30.
Yep.
And there was a guy on the staff at Grambling by the name of Jerry Hardaway. Jerry had coached at Memphis State. So I called Jerry. I said, Jerry, what kind of donuts you like? He said, oh, Coach, the Cowboys are coming tomorrow. I said, how'd you know? He said, Coach Rob said. He said, now listen, I'm getting that first dozen. Don't any of you stick your hands in there. I drive over, pick up 2 dozen. I walk up the steps to walk in the football office. Who greets me at the door? Coach Rob. Coach, good to see you again. I said, here you go, Coach Rob. He said, thank you very much. Tell Coach Landry I appreciate him a whole lot. He walked to his room, and I had to. So Hardaway meets me, goes, do you know he came in there and took 6 more donuts out of our box?
Well, Dave, anytime you go to someone's office, it's always a good idea to have food and knowledge. When you do a lot of data, and Ellis and Peter talked about it on your computer and all, what in particular, your background, numbers, finance, back in the mid 90s when you put together predictive consumer spending behavior models and all that they still use at your previous employer. Again, I'm always trying to find a new way to get out of my comfort zone. Tell people that are watching right now, we know one of the themes today is the SEC. We talk about all the SEC players in the NFL, but right now it's not translating to national championships. The Big Ten is doing it. Talk about that and the premium value being placed on coaching going forward, because we got 2 coaches with rocks on their fingers. I love this conversation.
Yeah, I don't claim obviously that the answers on it, but as a football fan, right? So when I want to try to tell the story of or what will happen, it's always inside the data. And I try to make it objective, right? I don't need subjective data where it's emotional and fan based, and so I would take a look at, okay, what is winning? Like when I first got into college football, my first question in 2007, 2008 was, what talent levels, recruiting wise, does it take to win a national championship, and is there a pattern? And that was the first thing I ever did. And talks about how recruiting and national championships and blah 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 blah, and then suddenly Indiana broke the mold. But that was the first question back then. So I was trying to figure out what was in common with winners, and what does it take to replicate that? So, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be college football, folks. Right? This can be anything in your life, right? You can take a look at your job and say, I want to get promoted. Well, what do all the people that get promoted? What is their profile? What was their path? What do they do well? What do they do poorly? Right? It's not just football. It's life, because your entire life is basically a giant data set, right? And your brain is a computer. And so, so when it comes down to looking at the SEC, we start with the most important thing, talent. Is SEC short on talent? Nope. The SEC is not short on talent. They're going to have the most guys drafted into the NFL, right? So then what is the next most important thing in college football? It's coaching, right? And then so you start going down the list in the SEC, and what I see are holes in coaching staffs. They're not consistent. Nobody really has an exceptional offense and defensive coordinator, right? Let's just start there. and I think we touched on this a little bit last week. But you have at LSU, you have the best combination probably right now with Lane as the play caller and Blake Baker as the defensive coordinator play caller. Right, that's your two best combination, right? Because Lane has had several elite years, and Baker's just coming off an elite year. Let's not forget LSU is number 13 in defensive scoring efficiency this year. Okay, I mean that's not too far below Miami, which made a national title game at number 8. So so once you get past LSU. I automatically jump over to Georgia because they have the best defensive coordinator of the last 17 years in our numbers in Kirby Smart. Okay. They got a 4-star offensive coordinator in Mike Bobo, but he was working with a new quarterback this year. Yeah. So outside of that, who really has great combos, right? Texas did, but then Steve Sarkisian did Sark things and fired his defensive coordinator to bring in a guy who hasn't called plays in a decade. Right. So that OCDC pairing is shot to crap, in my opinion. And so to me, when I look at the SEC, I look at the coaching holes, not the talent holes, in terms of the reason why the Big Ten and the SEC are so close together right now.
Yeah. Ellis, again, what he just said, it's hard to keep a coordinator around. Dave always talks about, and y'all do too, lack of continuity or continuance of continuity. You get a good one. Jim Knowles is at Ohio State. Then he goes to Penn State and participates in that burn down. Now, guess where Jim Knowles is? Tennessee. Can he have an immediate impact up there? Tim Banks, former coordinator, is gone now, coaching safeties at Auburn with DJ Durkin, who I think is a hell of a coordinator.
The only thing I know about Jim Knowles, and I've never met him, but it was said that they're very complicated.
Yes.
So you get a guy like that, it's hard to come in and make immediate impact because you don't get that immediate consistency in play.
Yeah.
The guys ain't on the same page at times. Other than that, I know nothing about him. But Dave is exactly right. I mean, if you don't think coaching makes a difference, then why are you a coach? So I think Oklahoma's got a good pair right now. I thought when Mateer got hurt, they got a little off track offensively, but I think that guy's pretty sharp. And I don't know if Brent can keep this up, being the head coach and the defensive coordinator, but I got tremendous respect for him.
Yeah, and Dave, being a coordinator and a head coach, your thoughts on that? Do you like that? I mean, it's rare.
It's rare to be successful at the highest level. My experience, obviously not a college football player or anything like that. I still remember the first time I was on the field standing next to the coaches and the players for a big college game. And the speed of the game relative to what you see on television is astounding. The sidelines they're absolute chaos. I mean, it is incredible the amount of mental experience you need to have to successfully navigate 60 minutes on a Saturday. It's amazing to me. And my point being is, as a head coach coordinator, now you're trying to navigate a game that is going at the speed of light from two different headsets, right? One as a coordinator, one as a head coach. And so I think if you're going to be successful there, I go back to the trust thing. Do you have a guy right next? Do you have a Pete Cordelli or an Ellis Johnson right next to you that is a pseudo defensive coordinator head coach, pseudo offensive coordinator head coach that thinks the way you think, that can help you manage the game, because it just moves so fast. But you can win games, but winning national titles with wearing both hats, We've had this discussion before. That's really rare. And you look at Signetti, there's another CEO winning a national title. Ryan Day didn't win a national title till he put the one headset down and was just a head coach only. So, I think if you're going to win at the top level, you kind of have to do that. But dude, the Seahawks just won it, and their head coach was calling the plays all damn game.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. It's like back, when you were in high school or college, there was always that guy or that gal that didn't really have to study that much. That was a 4.0, and you're like, damn, every time I see him, he's lighting one up, but he's a genius. Very hard to find. We got a couple of minutes left. Dave Bartu, College Football Matrix. By the way, chill gummy. I took one before the show. I'm very calm today. But they really work.
That's a bad batch.
That's right. If you've got aches and pains, or you have trouble sleeping, you've also got the lights out gummies and the energy gummies, and they do work on appetite suppression, pain, inflammation, and all. But the pain gels, the topicals, the lotions, the roll-ons, they absolutely work. I'm living proof of it. And order hempforpros.com. I'm talking to the man right here, Dave. Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
You got somebody out there that has a lot of anxiety. They got a quote, stressful job. Aren't they all? What's the best way to take that lights out gummy before you go to bed? How soon before you hit the rack?
About 20 minutes. That will knock out anybody. I help formulate those for NFL alumni, big dudes.
Yeah.
And it just takes one for them. My mother-in-law only took a half of one. So it will absolutely knock you out. If you're one of those people that have an Apple Watch or something that monitors your sleep, I guarantee you your sleep patterns are better. No, I've seen this on hundreds and hundreds of people that have used that. Your numbers get better. Absolutely taking lights out gummies for your sleep.
Yeah, I can tell when I wake up. You have slept solid, and they are real. And like I say, 20 minutes. That's what I do. And wherever you are, it's like that feeling. You just ran 5 miles. You take a hot shower, and you're laying in front of the fire, and you just ate dinner. Of course, I'm the son of a narcoleptic. I come by it honestly. My dad one time, I'm driving down to the beach with him. We get off into Kosciuszko, Mississippi, and all these trucks are honking, going, waving. I go, Dad, you're going the wrong way in traffic. He was asleep. And he pulled into the huddle house, and he said, boy, go in there and get me a cup of coffee, and don't tell your mother. I don't want to hear it. So I just remember that. But look, these things work. Lights out gummies, hempforpros.com. Hey, listen, guys, thank you all so much. We'll do it again next Monday. Ellis Johnson, Pete Cordelli, Dave Bartu, College Football Matrix, 3 of the best and brightest guys. I go back and watch these shows and take notes. Again, it's like being in grad school every time y'all are on. So thank you so much. And I'll close out with some kind words for our sponsors like hempforpros.com and the great folks at LandersFordMemphis.com at Poplar and Houston Levy. Also, the new location, folks, Landers, Mount Moriah, and Interstate 240, the iconic location right in the heart of Memphis. And look, Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company, President's Day, folks. They're open 10 a.m., 6 p.m. every day except Sunday. They've got it all. Barber, Filson, Stetson, STS, Devil Dog Jeans. They've got it all out there. And Raven, Charles, Hall, J.M. Huffman, Lydia, Squidward, everybody there to serve you. And look, remember, get out today. Go find some great ways to help people. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. For executive producer Brenden Martin, I'm Rob Brown. Share us, like us, and subscribe. See you tomorrow.